Hey, I'm Robert Randolph, and this is the Blues Podcast, baby.
Hello, and welcome to the Blues Podcast. I'm Big Boy Bloater. We've got a very special show lined up for you. It's a little bit different. We're doing it all online because of the current situation, but through the wonders of modern technology and a little bit of magic, I'm very pleased to say that I'm here talking with four-time Grammy-nominated steel guitarist Robert Randolph. Hey, Robert, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm locked in. I'm in my basement right now, and we're under COVID like the rest of the world is. COVID lockdown.
Yeah, you're looking good, man. Last time we spoke, I think you had a little bit of a hangover, maybe. I don't know. You had the sunglasses on and the coffee, but you got the sunglasses on today. But you seem a bit perkier today. You doing all right?
I think my hangover is kind of too much sleep hangover.
That's not a bad hangover, is it? That's not.
We're not used to getting more than 8 hours. Really, we're not used to getting more than 6 hours of sleep, man. Now I'm, at home on lockdown, you get 9, 10 hours. You just go. Oh, I guess there's no need to stay up late or go to sleep early.
How have you been finding it? I mean, obviously gigs cancelled. Like you say, not much to do now apart from sleep and things like that. How are you coping with it all?
I'm just trying to, hey, listen, it's kind of like we're all in the same boat together. You got hundreds of millions of people. You got thousands of musicians and bands where we're all doing nothing but writing songs, playing guitar, trying to figure out ways to record over, Zoom and over the phone and all of these different things, So, I mean, at least we get to play and practice a lot and come up with a lot of new riffs. And actually, the real cool part about it is you get to listen to a lot of music, man. You just put the music on and go around the house and clean and do all kinds of things. So it's kind of soothing and relaxing, actually. It's kind of like, like we don't need to be that busy,
Yeah, but it's nice for a little while, right? But enough's enough now, almost, right?
Enough is enough of the lockdown. I mean, I'm ready to go play some live music somewhere, somehow. It's not the same, doing all of these live sort of fan shows and for people over Zoom or Instagram Live or Facebook Live, it's just it's kind of like, everybody's sitting at home and there's one person playing their acoustic guitar or electric guitar with no band and singing to microphones with no effects. It's like, wow.
Weird, eh?
Just weird. Well, I mean, the whole point of playing live, it's all about adrenaline. When especially when you see a guy like Little Richard, right? Little Richard, basically the pioneer and the author of live adrenaline performances. I mean, it's the first guy to let you know, like, listen, you can get out the box. Before Little Richard, it was everybody like, I'm going to love you, and then Little Rich came out jumping around and animated, kicking his legs out and doing all these different things. So without that live audience, people in front of you and people all around you and the sweat and it's kind of like we're all just sitting here just practicing music.
Yeah, I think Little Richard was the original punk rocker, eh? Just that attitude of music, just,
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, he started so many different trends. The hair, the dressing, the attitude, the arrogance, the confidence. When you say arrogance, it's confidently arrogant or arrogantly confident, and all of that, which let people know you could be yourself. That's really what it's about, which led to rock, then punk rock, then metal, then death metal, and all the other different things. And imagine Hendrix without the attitude and the clothes and the freeness. You know what I'm saying? And it's, James Brown the same way. I mean, Little Richard started all of that.
Yeah, I
You know,
got
you
it.
don't know, you know, what was he, you know, nobody knows what he was. He just had this extra feminine side to him too. It's kind of like, wow, like, you know, is Richard, little Richard have a wife, or what does he have kids? Who is he? What does he do? You know, with this whole mystery,
I
you know?
think he scared a lot of people, didn't he? And that's kind of like what you want in your pop music, isn't it? You want, you know, to just to scare the people a little bit.
Hey, you know what? That's how we got to where we are. You know, when you know, he the thing to, you know, you got to have some kind of mystery. You know, that's what makes the real rock stars. You know, when you get people like they're scared because it's like I said, you know, it was all about, hey, you have to be proper when you get on TV because you have the audience, you know, and there's kids watching, and then Little Richard, woo, jumping around, you know, which led to Ozzy biting the head off of the bird, you know. I mean, there's just so many different things that he led. You know, he set an example of people being free, you know, through their artistry. You know, that you can't, you know, you can't pigeonhole what's in somebody. You know, that's what makes us all different. You know.
We should start talking about you a little bit, Robert. I think maybe, shouldn't we? I want to go right back to the early days if we can, and you know, your first musical influences. I mean, you were growing up and playing and singing in the church, right? That was, you weren't really hearing anything else at the time, were you?
No, man. When I grew up in the church, you know, you know, we had sort of our own little sort of chitlin circuit, which was like the Buena Vista Social Club of lap steel, pedal steel guitars, you know, playing flat this way, you know, and because really it was the lap steels, you know, because in the early days, the church couldn't afford pianos and organs because it was a poor black church, and it started out in the South of the United States, Florida, then to Georgia, and then, but it's a church organization. So, you know, as years went on, you know, it developed into all of these other different players that I grew up, well, my grandparents, great grandparents, parents, me, we all grew up watching these sort of lap steel, pedal steel pioneers play their instruments. And so that was our own little chitlin circuit. So I really only grew up wanting to be like those guys. You know, those were my Albert Kings and Albert Collins and BB Kings, you know, so that's what it was, you know. And then, you know, not until the year, I believe it was like 1996, 97, I believe I got a tape of Stevie Ray Vaughan's greatest hits. And I remember I only wanted to play like that, you know? So that was like, that's what led me down a whole new path of approaching the pedal steel guitar, the lap steel guitar, like a guitar player, you know?
Yeah.
And
for people listening at home and all that, can you explain a little bit about the pedal steel? Because a lot of people won't be familiar with it. It's quite a intricate instrument, isn't it?
so, well, here you go. You got 12 strings. It sits flat, right? And then down here you have floor pedals that you press. This is a pretty interesting Zoom thing, isn't it? First time I ever did this. And underneath I have all of these different knee levers that move from side to side, you know? Can you see that too?
Yep, yeah, we're getting that.
It really started out as the history of it is really like a Hawaiian instrument, started in Hawaii, then really came to mainstream American music through country music, you know, and that was sort of the whole vibe of it. But in our church, you know, we had to play it as sort of like Attitude and Bo Diddley meets, you know, Little Richard, basically, you know,
yeah,
and you know, and that was really what it was. It was really, you start out because you got to create the rhythm, right, of sort of like this Bo Diddley style of rhythm playing, right, and then you had to develop these single sort of singing style notes, like the great singers, because once the great gospel singers in church would finish singing, then the steel guitar had to carry on these beautiful notes that sounded exactly or close to the singer. So it was up to you how good you are if you can get those notes precise, you know. So that was sort of the key of it all, you know.
Yeah. So when you were growing up in the church, I mean, the sacred steel, as it's known there, right? That was the instrument that everybody wanted to play. Do you remember getting your hands on it for the first time?
Yeah, I remember there was a guy named Ted Beard gave me my first lap steel. I was 14. I actually was 14 years old when I got it, but I didn't play it. I tried to play because I was actually a drummer first, and I played like saxophone in the school band and all those kind of things. But I was a drummer for the church, and I remember wanting to play it. So Ted Beard, who's one of the original Sacred Steel forefathers, actually, where the song "If You Go to Live at the Wetlands," Ted's Jam came from him. So he brought me my first lap steel, and I started playing it. I was actually 14. Started playing it, then I was like, you know what, this is too hard. I'll just be a drummer. And then, I remember one of the old guys. His name was Henry Nelson, one of the other Sacred Steel guys, and he was just like, listen. This was like 2 years later, right? He was like, you got to take your time with it. You just got to really get into it, because I heard him making all of these sounds. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to really go back and stick with this thing and try. And I just, from the age, about 16 and a half, going into 17, I think I played every day, all day, 8 hours a day,
Wow.
So that's really when I got serious about it, at the age of 16,
And then how did you make the jump from like gospel and church music into like more mainstream blues and rock and funk stuff?
Well, from the time when I got that Stevie Ray Vaughan tape, I would then go to church and try to implement a lot of that stuff, and they were like, "Where are you getting all of this?"
How did that go down, man?
It didn't go down well at all, man. They were like, "What's he doing? What is this guy? What?" It's kind of, I'm trying to figure out what it reminds you of, like watching a movie. It's kind of like when you see Jimi Hendrix, how he was in like everybody's sort of backup band. He was like the backup guitar player for so many different people, but he was just too confined, he was too confined. Yeah, Little Richard, the Isley Brothers, right? He was too confined, and so it really wasn't accepted, because it's like, hey, what are you doing, man? You're supposed to be a guy that plays in the band, not this all over the place, too much energy, So for me, the church really didn't they liked it, but the older people were like, what's going on with this guy? This guy's full of the demons, full of the devil, But then we had this sort of thing called the Sacred Steel Convention. It was like the first one.
Right, yeah.
Because as the story started to get documented, a bunch of people started to notice. So we've decided to form in the year of 1999. It was the first actual Sacred Steel Convention. So we got all of the steel players from my church and some other sort of white guys who were sort of like not country players, but they were sort of like alternative guys who sort of followed the story. And we all kind of got together in Orlando, Florida, at this old college. It was actually Sanford, Florida. And we kind of got together, and it was actually sort of the first time to where, like in our church, it was actually like we were starting to form groups, because other than that, we just played at church, there was really no bands. So it was kind of like, I was only like 18, 19 at the time. So it was like, hey, we're going to form a band. I was like, wow, really? Okay. And it's going to be, they call it Robert Randolph and the Family Band. And there was like the Campbell Brothers and this other band and this one, Calvin Cook Band, right? And so that was sort of the first time. And at that first Sacred Steel Convention in 1999, I met, which would then become my first manager. His name was Jim Markle. He had wind up, we started talking, and he was like, wow, have you heard of the Allman Brothers? Have you heard of this one and that one? And I was like, not really. Have you heard of this one? Have you heard of the band? And I was like, no. Have you heard of, Zeppelin? I'm like, I think I've heard of Zeppelin, but I never really listened to it. So, it was just all of these things. So when I got home, about a month later, this box arrives, and he had sent me 2 boxes full of every CD you can imagine, from blues to funk to rock. And it was like, and it was, it was kind of like, it's like going to college or something, or going to music school for me. Cause and it actually took me years to go through all of the different things because, I fell in love with just all of this old James Brown stuff that I never listened to. Right. So it was James Brown. Then it was like the Isley Brothers. Then it was the Allman Brothers. Then it was Leonard Skinner. And then I wind up falling in love with the Beatles for some reason, right? I mean, it's great songs, and I went through a Beatles phase, great musicians, great singing. Then I fell into Led Zeppelin, and I was stuck on Led Zeppelin for so long, And so then what's funny, like, 6 months ago, I'm like cleaning out my basement in my house, and I still, believe me or not, I still have the box of CDs, right? So I remember, like, I'm like I took the CDs and I kind of like downloaded them on my computer and I put them on my phone. And I'm driving one day and I hear, I'm like, the song comes on. It's like, I'm ready for love. Oh, baby, I'm ready for love. I'm like, well, who the hell is this? How come I never? And it was like, oh, Bad Company. I was like, how come I never heard of this band? I mean, this is 6 months ago that I'm talking about, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, how come I never heard of Bad Company? So I'm going through, all the different things. So now I'm in love with Bad Company, So it's kind of like I'm still learning,
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm still learning as well. There's still bands I'm coming across. I think, how have I missed this band out for so many years? But it's just, there's always those little holes in your musical knowledge that kind of get filled as you go along. But I guess you start a little bit later than most, right?
Yeah, it's a real interesting journey how it all happens. It's kind of because you go through all these phases to where, especially for me, like once I sit down at the guitar and start playing, I'm kind of just in my own world because I'm coming up with so many riffs and ideas and choruses, verses, and I probably have 500 unfinished songs, and because I'm so ADD once I get on the guitar, and like many musicians, we all are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it is. So I really don't actually get to sit down and listen to music because I'm so ADD unless I'm on a long flight or taking a long ride in a car, because once I sit down at the guitar, it's just kind of me and the guitar, and now, you get older, you try to practice. It's not like when you were younger, you'll sit all day and try to learn something, right? When you get older, you kind of like, you get frustrated. You're like, well, it takes too long for me to learn that new scale, especially on this thing. You're trying to learn the scale.
Yeah.
Now the younger kids have all the technology, right? And they have all these different ways of learning things. So it's just funny where this musical road takes us, and all through the years, it's just so funny. I was telling this story last night, the first time where I got a chance to meet Ringo, it was a phone call I get.
Yeah.
And, we were on tour. This is actually like 2005, early summer, like it's right around this time, May 2005. We were on a tour bus and it was like 10 in the morning. It's like, hello, Robert, this is Ringo. And I'm like, I got the phone. I'm like, Ringo? Who the hell is Ringo? I don't know no damn Ringo. And it was like, it's Ringo. Leave Ringo from the Beatles. And I remember my tour manager at the time was like, his like mouth was wide open, right? He's like, oh, because he's such a Beatles fan, right? I mean, he's like a Beatles fanatic, like to him, it's all about the Beatles and Grateful Dead. Those are the two bands that only matter to him, right? So he was like, what the hell is Ringo want? So Ringo's like, hey, Robert, I just want to tell you, I really love your music. And Joe Walsh is marrying my sister-in-law, and we want you to be the wedding band. Wow. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we want you and the family band to be. I was like, wow. I was kind of like, okay, So that kind of led to this whole other thing of, talking to him, then meeting him at the wedding with Joe Walsh. First time I met Joe Walsh, and the whole nine, and which was so funny because, in that same box of CDs I was telling you, it was like the Eagles, but like, I never really listened to the Eagles that much, right? And so I'm kind of like, yeah, I know who Joe Walsh is, great guitar player. I hear him on the classic rock radio stations, the Eagles. I was kind of like, well, the Eagles is kind of my thing, but it's not right now. but after meeting Joe Walsh and then hearing his stories and Ringo and the whole thing of how it all came together, it just, here we are today, and I'm still trying to learn the songs from the James Gang and all these things. So
Yeah.
it's unbelievable, man.
Joe Walsh, he's a crazy guy, right?
Yeah, he's laid back though,
Yeah.
he's a funny guy. He's great. He's healthy, man. He's always giving tips, giving me advice, and he's so clean. And it's so funny, man, because he's clean now. And I remember actually sort of like the last time I saw him, this kind of, I think it was like last summer. I forget. Oh, I know we were. We were at the Crossroads in September, the Eric Clapton Crossroads festival in Dallas. So we were there, and I remember I got like drinks in my hand. I'm always drinking, and I'm like totally drunk and acting like a little kid, and I'm like, Joe, and I like spill my drink on Joe, and he's kind of looks at me like, what the hell, Robert? What are you doing? I'm like, clean. I'm a recovering, I'm clean. You're gonna be spilling. I don't want you spilling your alcohol on me. It's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, Joe. It's kind of funny though. It's a great thing, man, because you see, first of all, I'm getting old, and then you realize, like, wow, man, these dudes are 70 something, and Joe Walsh is healthy, just like Eric Clapton and Buddy Guy. It's kind of like, wow, there is hope for me to still be alive at 70.
Fingers crossed.
Like,
yeah, man.
Those guys look, they look good, man, and it's still playing and kicking ass and sounding great, singing great, and like, shoot, man, that just puts the whole world of music and life into perspective when a guy like me gets to hang around those guys and get so many different types of advice, and that's sort of the cool thing, you can get, you can get musical advice, you can get guitar advice, you can get singing advice, you can get how to stay alive advice, So that's what's cool about the whole thing.
You've done quite a bit of work with Eric Clapton, haven't you? You've toured with him, and you've played together. How did you first meet Eric Clapton?
I first met Eric Clapton at actually, this was like the year of 2002. We were actually playing in Tokyo, Japan, and I had just signed to Warner Brothers, and we flew out to Tokyo. And I remember somebody from Warner Brothers at the time called and says, hey, Eric Clapton's actually playing in Tokyo, and he wants to come to your show tonight. And I was like, really? I was like, oh, okay, well, hey. So he's like, yeah, well, he's going to come, him and his manager and probably somebody else. So, we're at this small club, and, we rocking out, and it's in Tokyo, Japan on like the 95th floor, because that's how the clubs are, in Japan, So we're there, and we play, and we're totally drunk and wasted. So after the show, I was like, hey, man, did Eric Clapton ever show? They're like, yeah, he came. He stayed for about 45 minutes or so, and he left. I was like, oh, well, I guess we sucked then, It's kind of like, oh, well. And then literally like 2 weeks later, it was like, hey, man, Eric Clapton wants to take you guys on tour, man, and he wants to take you on this big European tour. And I was like, really? Okay. So now, 6 months later, we were in the tour. The first leg of the tour first day was in Barcelona, Spain. I'll never forget. And we get to this arena, stadium. It was like the soccer stadium. And I'm sitting there and I'm practicing, and kind of playing. And I remember my tour manager looks up, and he's kind of like, saw a deer in headlights. And I look behind me, and like Eric Clapton sort of just standing there, not saying nothing, just watching me play, practice, and he was like, well, I'm just really amazed at how you do that, and I was like, hey, man, how you doing, man? Pleasure to meet you, and thanks for having us on tour and this all kind of stuff. And ever since that day, we kind of would just kind of like sit down, talk, and became sort of good friends, over the years. And he's just been a great mentor. He has this sort of way of telling you if you didn't play good today, though. He's like, wow. He'll say like, hey, how was it out there? He's like, oh man, I think it was pretty good. What's your thing? He's like, oh, seems like you guys had a lot of drink today. Seems like you guys had too much to drink. Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, because when you're younger, you don't know. You go out there, you play, you drinking all day, and then go back on the tour bus. You stay up till 6 in the morning. You wake up at sound check. You play a gig. So it was great, man. He's just been since then, I've recorded on his record. He recorded on mine. We've practiced. We've talked on the phone many times, and it's just been a great thing, man. He's been, I would say, probably one of the number one sort of more influential guys on my growth in my career as a person, as a songwriter, as a musician, really as a whole. Just to watch him perform, and you look at his catalog,
Yeah.
of so many different styles of songs. It's kind of like you get to, when we and I don't even know if we really do it right now. We really give him credit, but I think he's probably the only guitarist that has really switched it up so many different times. To go from Derek and the Dominoes to Cream, right, to the solo stuff and Tears in Heaven, You're Wonderful Tonight, acoustic, it's just so many different things to so many different models to kind of pattern myself and even all of the other younger guitar players like Gary Clark Jr. and Marcus King and John Mayer and Kenny Wayne. So he's left this path for so many of us to go down. So it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah. I think we should give a shout out to the family band, because they are literally your family, aren't they?
Yeah, the family band. I got my sister, Lanisha. She's a great singer. I got my cousin Marcus on the drums. He's been with us the whole entire 20 years. My other cousins on the bass and on the keyboard. So it's been great, man. You have your family with you. You fuss, you fight, you argue, you play music, you wake up.
Does having the family with you kind of on the road, does it keep you a little bit more grounded, or do you find yourself kind of getting a bit more carried away?
Well, it's actually cool because we all kind of really like look out for each other, it's kind of like, it's like a family, it's like a real family, as like, because, don't forget, man, when you're on the road, there's so many different types of really sketchy people that you actually meet.
Yep.
Everybody really don't have good intentions, I should say, right? But there's tons of great people, but there's lots of bad people. So you will come across these people, and so as a family band, we kind of all look out for each other. We kind of, I guess we had this weird way of going like, hey man, you shouldn't go down there. You shouldn't go that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't. Okay, you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Now go to bed. So yeah. So that's really the key, because I think for the most part, if something happens to somebody, you got to answer to the aunties or the uncles or grandma. It's like, that's not a good look. It's not a good thing.
Your live performances get pretty wild sometimes, eh? There's I've heard about you getting up and dancing around the stage and all this kind of thing. Is it just when the mood takes you, that we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? The excitement of the audience to just get you going, kind of thing?
Yeah, man. That's the whole point of playing live. You play live for the audiences, and that's why it's so, it's kind of like, for me as a young 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old, I used to look at videos of Little Richard and Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and there was always this like, man, when I walk on stage, I got to give it all, but then there was always this emphasis on trying to recreate this setting, or the feelings and the setting of togetherness that we grew up in church with. When we were playing in church, it was always about connecting with the congregation. So one guy would sing, one lady would clap, one person would moan, one person would do this. We would play music, and it was just this exchange of call and response and feeding back. So all throughout the years, I've kind of put that in my live shows. And so we get wild. I got, I'll jump off to pick the guitar up, put it on my head. I got tons of scars in my head, and yeah. I think that's when I was going through the whole Black Sabbath phase, I'll do that, but I won't bite the head off a bird,
Yeah. That seems like a bad idea, and it's a current climate for sure. But,
it would definitely break the internet. I would probably be famous. Maybe I should go bite off the head of a bird live on stage when we all get back.
Nah, leave it, man. Leave it.
Yeah.
Just talking a minute ago about some contemporary blues guys like Gary Clark Jr., Marcus King, and all that. What do you think of the current blues scene and what those guys are doing?
It's really great. I think, the blues went through this tough phase of kind of, and I'm sure many blues guys will disagree. Some of the guys that, and a lot of them will disagree, but this is just my take. I think the blues went through, and I've actually discussed this with the Blues Society, and they actually believe it too. But they see a new day coming. So anyway, the new day is actually here. So I think it just went through this phase of, everybody trying to be like Muddy, trying to be like, Albert King, and trying to be like all the other blues guys, Dwayne Burnside and this one and that one. And nobody was taking the blues to the next levels, because then you would have all of these diehard blues fans like, you're not playing the blues. It's like, well, gee, man, you want 145? I mean, that's been going on since 1940s, man. 145, 145, 145, 145, black man. That's the blueprint for us to go and create something new. So I think really in the last, I would say 10 years, there's been all these other guys that have been there. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Johnny Lang, Keb Mo, but then now there's a whole new sort of movement, between, like I say, Marcus King and Gary Clark Jr. And it's really I don't know if it's thanks to me. Maybe I'll get like a little richer right now, thanks to me. I don't know if it's thanks to me or who or what, or who, but it's a combination, man, of Gary Clark, myself, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, now you got Marcus King, and now you got Kingfish, right? I don't know if you ever heard of him, right? Have you heard of him? Yeah. Okay, so you got Kingfish, and you got Samantha Fish, and you have this. I mean, I'm sure I'm leaving out many different other people, but for me, these are kind of the new, because they're not doing the normal blues thing. These guys are taking what the forefathers have left us and really creating a whole new style of blues and energy and songwriting. And it's really beautiful, and it's wonderful to see, and it's refreshing. So now you're going to see a new wave. I mean, we're already seeing it now of new blues fans, due to these younger guys, creating new waves of the blues, So it's really awesome to see.
Yeah, I think it's really healthy at the moment, the blues scene. It's
it's
definitely
really
had
healthy.
That injection of somebody's doing something just a little bit different, which is great.
Well, here's a crazy part. Here's what you do know, right? That as long as you're playing the blues, you'll be able to play music until you die, right? Because we know it's not going to go out of style, right? When you look at, like I say, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, and I could keep naming names of all the other people that died, Hubert Sumlin and this one and that one, right? You play until you die, man, because R.L. Burnside,
Yeah.
So, look at Bobby Rush. You know what I'm saying? Same thing. Dude's 87, man. It's kind of like, wow, like still playing, still singing, still performing. Buddy Guy.
See yourself retiring at some point and going to live, in a nice quiet house somewhere and having a quiet life.
Let me tell you something. If anybody had an inkling of retiring, right, or ever had it in their brains during this lockdown, they have denied retiring. Like this is all about as retired as you can get, sitting at home. So everybody's kind of like, it feels good and it's cool, but like, nah, I'll just play till I die.
Yeah.
You know.
We had
And
a question.
I forgot to mention Joe Bonamassa too.
Well, Joe famously says he's actually planned his retirement. He's got the date of the date planned that he's going to cut off, and that's it, hasn't he? He said he's going to, knock it. I don't believe it. I don't think he'd be able to do it, but
I highly 100% doubt that, man. The guy, he can't stop playing, man. He can't stop creating. He's like, he never stops. He keeps going and going and going, you know? So, yeah, I knew I was leaving people. I forgot Eric Gales and Joe Bonamassa, right? And the more I think, I'm sure I'll keep missing somebody. And it was not, and you're talking about like two of the greatest guitar players, right? You know, it's like, so that's, you know, that's the exciting part, you know? It's like, you know, I mean, the only reason I mentioned the younger guys, because that's really going to move the needle of the real younger movement. Because technically, we're already older.
Yeah.
Me, Eric Gales, who's older than me, Joe Bonamassa is older than me. So we're already older. But there's just, in the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years, there's been this whole new movement of blues. Yeah.
We've had a question in from a fan of yours, a guy called Norman Lees. He wants to know, did you ever make a recording with Charlie Starr? Because he saw you both playing on YouTube together and he thought it was terrific. So is there any recordings at all or anything?
So, so there was. So what we did was we had wrote this song called Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, right? And when I recorded my last, not this recent record, but the record called Got Soul before that, the producer decided to record it as an instrumental, right? It should have been the song featuring Charlie Starr at that point, because it was such a great song. Vocally, the choruses, the verses, and everything. So anyway, Charlie just loved it so much to where we actually did the song live on that YouTube clip that he saw, it was called Skyville Live Sessions that you record in Nashville. So it came out so great. Then I decided to record it with Blackberry Smoke Band. So yeah, you can hear that recording live. It's a recording. It's on the Blackberry Smoke record, I believe, from their last record. So yeah, and it's really great because it goes as transition, and then it goes into, we have this slow down guitar kind of moment, you know. It's great, you know. You got like singers going on. It's great.
I've got a big question. We always save a big question for the end, and we like to ask everybody that we talk to this question now. I need you to imagine this. It's like it's a few years in the future, okay, and there's a big meteorite heading for the Earth, and it's going to be the end of the world. And the world president comes to you and says, Robert, we need you to put on a show to see us out, you know, to go out in style. What band are you going to put together for this? Who are you going to have in your band? And what song would you play as the last party of the world?
Oh, the last party of the world. Well, is this like an all-time list, or can I
Well, it's slightly in the future, so you can have like holograms and stuff like that kind of thing, you know. So you can have anyone you want, really. Yeah.
Okay, so on the drums, I would have Carter Buford from the Dave Matthews Band on the drums, right? On bass, I would have, well, first guitar, I would have Stevie Ray Vaughan on one side. And on the other side, I would have Dickie Betts. I mean, sorry, Hendrix fans. I mean, I love Hendrix too, but it's like I'm trying to get some variety in, right? But and on keyboard, it would be Stevie Wonder, right?
Yeah.
If I needed a front singer, right, I would pick Aretha Franklin. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. This is shaping up to be a great band. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And on bass, on bass, who am I missing on bass? I'm missing somebody. On bass, I would have let's go off the beaten path. Let's go on bass. Let's go Willie Dixon on bass.
Oh, one of my favorites. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
See, nobody expected that one coming, right?
Great choice.
That's a good band, man. It's a damn good band.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder, Willie Dixon, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Dickie Betts. Wow.
So what
Aretha
song are you going to play?
The song we're going to play, Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, that seems very appropriate, right? Yeah.
It's either Stairway to Heaven or I would say Freebird. Imagine Aretha singing Freebird. See, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See where I'm going?
Yeah.
Imagine Aretha and Stevie singing Freebird, and you got me, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Dickie Betts on guitar. What the hell's going on there, man? You see what I'm saying?
It's kind of, it's a shame it's the end of the world, because I'd love to buy the DVD of that when it came out as well. But, you know, it's like...
Sorry, man. This is the last dance, man. This is the last dance, man. Yeah, you know, yeah, it will be Freebird, man. Fly away, man. You know, a 3-hour version of Freebird, you know. Because there's a lot of people on that stage that Aretha's got to sing for 20 minutes, you know. Stevie Wonder's got to do whatever he's gonna do. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Dickie Betts. Come on, man. That's dangerous, man. I bet you can't nobody put a better band than that.
I wouldn't dare try. I tell you.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, man. Thank you so much. From your basement there, it's been brilliant.
Thank you so very much for having me, man.
So if you've enjoyed this, why not like and subscribe to the Blues Podcast right now? Why?